Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, we are here at Aesthetic Next for an episode of For the Record. And I just left the stage not long ago talking about the big things happening in aesthetics. And we have with us today a guy who is helping to lead that charge across a couple of different businesses. We have with us today Jourdan Eloriaga, who is the CEO of Aesthetic Bosses and also the newly appointed VP of Prime Ivy Health. And he is a marketing guru with an agency that is doing all kinds of strategic work with different groups to help them bring in more patients, more leads, convert more leads, make more money, which is a big goal of all of this, and to do it in a way that is easy and seamless. And he is an AR client, a LeadAR client, and just a great friend of our company. So we're happy to have with us today, Jourdan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for that wonderful intro, Tiffany.
Well, you're so welcome. We've gotten to know you really quite well recently because we've been talking to you a lot about all the things you're doing.
Yeah.
So give us an idea, first of all, of Aesthetic Bosses, what you guys do, because you have a lot more than just a marketing agency. So give us an overview.
Yeah, so Aesthetic Bosses is really a consulting firm for medical aesthetic practices. And we started really about me being an executive at a medical spa. And we also use LeadAR and Aesthetic Record. And a lot of what we learned about using the integrations and the marketing from LeadAR stem from what we do at Aesthetic Bosses. Yeah, and in 1 year at our medical aesthetic practice, we're generating around $350K a month.
Wow.
Utilizing LeadAR and Aesthetic Record. Yeah.
That is no small amount of money, Jourdan. If you're listening to this thinking that's my whole quarter, that's half my year. That's quite a bit of money. And you guys are really, like I said before, machine. Walking over to the podcast, but you are a machine. You've got things so procedurally based, I think very structured.
Yeah.
So thinking through that part of it, if you're a practice owner listening to this saying, I want to have that same thing, what does that process look like for you to go into a business and say, okay, you guys are everywhere. Let's get our house in order and get things very methodical. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think if anyone's listening to this, especially if you're running paid ads, right? Especially running paid ads to get people into LeadAR and Aesthetic Record. I've worked with hundreds of clients now and spas. The notion of just contacting leads, and I say this to our staff, get them to buy, die, or unsubscribe.
Okay, wait, buy, die, or unsubscribe. Okay,
Yep.
Write that one down. That's a
Yep.
new tattoo. I'm going to get them.
Yeah, because 80% of our sales happens between the 5th and 12th touch point. And a lot of spas that I come across, they may say that they contact their leads in LeadAR, and really they're just calling maybe one time and then letting them go into the ether. And if we're really doing that, we're just quite frankly burning money on paid ads. So if anyone's listening to this right now, I would say, especially if you're running paid ads to LeadAR, start utilizing those tools that you have available to you to the point where they buy, die, or unsubscribe. And I promise you will see double your patient counts, profits, and the whole gamut of just growing your practice.
Well, it's funny because Sarah's a big believer as well, who runs our LeadAR team. She's like, keep hitting on to the unsubscribe. But I do think that there's a part of it where we get nervous of like, I don't want to inundate someone. So when you think through like the automation versus a human actually reaching out and touching somebody, What's a good balance there? Because I feel like at some point you do want to have, like, I want to call you like, what the heck, Jourdan, are you going to come in or not? Versus always the automations.
Yeah, I think really, automations and the AI stuff should be really used as a tool, right? I would say there's 3 points of growing a practice, at least at our clinic. It's content, connections, and calls, right? And to your point, we have to build these connections. Otherwise, we're selling an emotional-based service. And if we don't build these connections, then we can't grow. And if we just focus on and really use AI as a crutch and not to really connect with our future patients and anything like that, then again, we're burning money on our marketing efforts, right? So we want to build these connections and utilize LeadAR and all these tools that we have available to us, but not say, hey, I have AI and that's it, right? It's a harmonious approach.
But I think it's why people are so scared of it. They're so scared it's going to take over and that there's not going to be a place for them to have like the human connection. But you guys do, you said calls. You're a big calling group.
Yeah.
as you know, Jourdan, all the millennials and the Zers and the Yers, we don't like to phone call we don't like to call anybody ever. I'm like, don't call me ever. But
Yeah.
you've got a group who's calling a lot and having good success with that. So how does the calling process work? Is it a call center? Because I do think to get a front desk girl to make a phone call is really quite challenging.
It is. And we don't use a call center. Everyone's a W-2 employee, right? Typically, we have 2 people running at the spot one time, one in the front who are taking in walk-ins and also calling via LeadAR, and one in the back, just focusing on the pipeline and calling the leads in the back. There's no real secret, right, to growing a practice. And we've seen double patient counts of everyone that I've chatted with, kind of just doing this philosophy of, hey, buy, die, or unsubscribe. Yeah. And, if you really wanted to kind of copy what we're doing, again, we're doing $350K a month. And there's obviously other things to it, but I could tell you on average, our staff is calling around, and this is reporting in LeadAR, around 8,000 outbound calls a month.
Wow. 8,000 a month. So if you think about that in a daily number, that's pretty high.
It's quite a bit. No.
But I think it's intention. So, if we look at practices who are thinking, I want to do some calls, maybe not, it's intentional. It's part of your strategy, very intentional. If you think about your day-to-day teaching a clinic owner how to run their business, like you walk in and say, this thing's a mess.
Yeah.
Where do they start? Do they start with 8,000 calls a month? Do they start with, let's just get your SMS, strategy down. Let's get your ad strategy. Where do you even start to look at your business and say, I'm not doing nearly enough and my marketing ROI is total trash? Where do you go from there?
I think, it is utilizing like tools like LeadAR, but I think what really was the epiphany for me is we meet with our staff weekly, right? And I encourage everyone to do that in terms of, listening to recordings of how they're calling, how they're selling and whatnot. But, my epiphany was we met weekly and I would ask, hey, is there any objections for, selling Botox or selling, we offer weekly weight loss at the practice. Have you guys have any objections, managing the pipeline in LeadAR, anything like that? And for a couple of weeks, it was like, no. And I would be like, all right. But it took me a couple weeks to be like, wait a minute, that's a red flag. If they don't have any objections, right? Then that's a red flag. And that's an objection that me as an executive, we have to push through. Right. So, meeting weekly, letting people use LeadAR to call out, listening to the recordings, hand-holding our staff on how to properly push people from new lead to selling a membership has been very instrumental for us.
Well, I think if you look at 8,000 calls a month, what I often see is people will have a great ad. Mm-hmm. People will come in from the ad, they'll call in, they'll text in, and then nothing happens. Like there is no management of the pipeline. And so I always say, even for our own business, we can have the best ads, the best creative, we can spend all the money in the world. But if no one takes that lead and moves it in the pipeline to a conversion, what was the point of all of it? It just kind of stacks up in a row. I think that's the part that people really struggle with is once they're here, now what? What do I do with them? And so you have great marketing and crappy sales. It's got to all be great. Yeah. So how does the pipeline process, if you're looking at your metrics, like do you want them to close 20%, 30%? Like how much of a conversion are you looking for each week?
I think we're looking for around 30% with that. I mean, that's a good, North Star to point to. But I wanted to step back and, even before kind of managing the pipeline, one thing that is often missed too for, anyone watching is Google reviews. That will initially help out qualify and get like those, people that just buy. And to give like perspective, in 1 year's time, we were very aggressive on calling and we were very aggressive on Google reviews. So in around a year's time, we have 1,800.
That's a lot of Google reviews.
Yeah. We tell them in clinic, like here, take out the QR code, right? Get them to leave a review. But the next spa that is around us has like 300. So there's literally no competition.
So so let's break that down because people are weird about reviews. They're so weird about reviews.
Yeah.
QR code, is it in the room? Like on a little like a placard or how?
Everyone has their own
actual thing.
As a placard, right? Like a plastic thing, and in each room. So we have it right then and there.
I love it. You're thinking about it. You get it done.
Yeah.
Go on with your day. I love it.
If we're really talking about how marketing and sales like intertwine with like, LeadAR and aesthetic record and all that good stuff, everyone wants just leads that just come in and buy. If you're running paid ads and they see maybe they don't convert on the ad itself, but then they look you up, you have 1,800 reviews, the next person has 300. There's literally no competition. And that drops the cost of acquisition tremendously.
Well, I agree with what you just said about if the ad doesn't convert, something else will, because there is a halo effect.
Yeah.
And I wish I could figure out how to really understand that metric of they don't come in for the ad, but the ad really is what they found me with the ad. But then they got an SMS, they had they saw me on a billboard, they saw me with an Instagram post or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're here.
Mhm.
The attribution for marketing is so incredibly hard to do to know what thing is driving the business that you almost have to not shotgun approach, but you have to kind of put a little bit of money in a lot of buckets because you don't know which one's filling up which bucket. If that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. And I will say, I'm going to give another LeadAR plug because I love you guys. Whereas like in the reporting, we can see the attribution, right? We can see what what ad is bringing in bookings and memberships and whatnot, so we can get the cost of acquisition, right? So how we initially scaled was in our first like 6 months, we figured out like, hey, it's costing us. Because we are aggressive, like $25 to bring in a Botox client, $30 to bring in a weekly weight loss client. So that way we can scale on demand with predictability. So it's no longer throwing stuff to the wall and be like, oh, maybe it's working. Now we have a North Star to, forecast profitability.
And if it starts to creep up, it's too high. Like that's the part for me. Is like I want to know what our average cost is, so that if I run a campaign and I'm way over, I know that. And I think lots of times people don't think about that, like the calibration number, right? To say, gosh, I love this ad. The creative's so beautiful. The words are so wonderful, but it's costing me double what everything else cost me. Maybe it's not the right ad for us. And I think that's part of, we've been working on the new ad manager that Facebook just launched or Meta just launched to see if it's better, to have a person calibrated or to have Meta calibrated. I'm not sure. I have an opinion yet.
Yeah.
It is convenient, but when you guys are running ads, what is the back end engine of that? Is it a person who is making creative, who's doing content, who's actually every day going and looking at lists and lookalike audiences? Because you got to work ads. Like they don't just happen. Like you got to work that thing hard. So how does it work for you?
Yeah, you'll probably, this is my take on it. People might be surprised, but I focus more on the content, right? Because especially with Meta, they're trying to push their AI stuff and Manage Plus and whatnot. They're trying to make it easier and whatever. And when I hear that, it's like, okay, well, if I'm just going to trust them on the targeting, people will see it. But if the content is crappy, then it's just going to be shown to a lot of people, right? And if the 3 C's of building a spa, like content, connections, call, right? Content, connections piece. If we're building that piece, connections, content, and if you really think about it, if we're creating, I call it like authority funnel content where it's designed to maybe help out our front desk staff, decrease sales tension on their end, maybe overcome some objections that we commonly have, which is a key pro tip. If talk with your front desk staff, and if they're seeing common objections, right, over and over again, maybe you should put it as content. So, and also put it through remarketing or, just, general targeting in general, so it could help them sell.
Yeah, on your site, your FAQs. Yeah. I love what you said there, though, because we do that a lot even for AR. If there's a big issue that we keep hearing about, we love our friend ChatGPT. We'll ChatGPT it, what are the answers, how should we communicate it, and then turn that into a post or an ad. But I do think what you just said is so, it's almost unnerving how true it is and how much of a fight it becomes. You said content matters most. I agree with you. In an ad, I want great content. I want it to be compelling. Serving it to the right audience doesn't matter if it's not the right content. And people get so, as you know this, I'm sure, they get so caught up in who is my audience, lookalike audiences, who has touched this person, who has touched that person. Like if the content sucks, it doesn't matter. Worst case, it's a great list and bad content, and everyone sees your bad content. Like the content has to, and Meta will, if you use Meta's tool, they will always give you more preference. So we've been using it. So like if I use their ad manager, I'll get better placement. And I think it is actually, they love their own people. But I think the content being great is so important, and people undervalue that.
Exactly. And for any parents out there, right, I'm looking at things for my kindergartner, right, online, and then I get a bunch of ads for kindergarten stuff. Right. I have a 5 and 3-year-old right now. So I'm just constantly getting ads from kid stuff. So it's working. Right. If I've searched for something, they got it pretty down pat on like who to target to. So why would it be any different for us? Now we have to focus in on the content.
Do you ever get weird ads and think, how do they figure out that I would want that thing?
Exactly.
It's such a weird, obviously it's the diapers and the beer. During the war, it's like if you bought beer, you'd buy diapers. They kind of knew how to cross promote. But
Yeah.
you mentioned authority funnel, and I love the Google Eats score mantra. I think it is changing now with Gen AI, it's a different score. But the idea that I've got to position myself as an expert.
Mhm.
I think the social media fun, all the dancing, there's a lot of things that are really interesting. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, credentialing yourself, making sure that you're, sort of top dog in your market. What is a good strategy for that on my website that links back to my SEO and to my social media and to my ads I'm running? Like, do I create like a whole story that I'm telling and it just goes everywhere? Or how do you suggest that we showcase our credibility?
Yeah, from a personal brand standpoint, I mean, if we're talking about, I'll start off with social, right? I think short form content is the way to go, first and foremost, but in a tasteful way that positions you as an authority without necessarily saying it. So I'll give you an example, right? We work with plastic surgeons too. And, a quick script off the top of my head is, hey, here's 5 things you should ask your plastic surgeon before considering rhinoplasty. The doctor has a white coat on, is very aesthetically pleasing. And there's a couple elements that are happening in this piece of content where he's saying he's a doctor without actually saying he's a doctor. Right. So it's top of funnel content where he can use that as the ad. And we've actually done this before. He's doubled his practice where that was the initial ad. And it's a way for him to build credibility, especially on Instagram, without saying, I'm a doctor, which sometimes can be intimidating.
For sure can.
Right. And then that leads into a long form piece of content. And again, going back to talking with your staff about like what common objections are you experiencing and whatnot. There's more to it, but this quick kind of like framework of short form to long form is how we utilize content to sell for ourselves. And, if we do it right, we can overcome objections even before they buy.
And I think you need objections. Like you mentioned this earlier. If everyone's saying yes all the time or just saying no, I have nothing to go off of. I want you to say no, and here's why. Because then I have things to build from. I think people get really caught up in the fact that, we lost, let's say we had 5 come in today consults, 3 didn't buy. Okay, why? If I know why they didn't buy, I can figure out how to make content around that. So I do think the meeting with your staff, because they do get despondent, they get sad, I'm not converting, I don't have the numbers. Like, great. Now we have information. Like you not selling is equally as beneficial to me as you selling, because now I know what to do for content. And I think what you mentioned, the five reasons why, that is exactly the kind of content you want, because that's like a free checklist. And as a person, a learner on social media, not a patient, a learner, I want to learn that because now I know what to ask in my next consult. And if they don't measure up, I'm going back to your guy because he does measure up. I just think there's such a benefit to that. If we listen to our staff, they're hearing the reasons why, but getting out of their head and saying, no, I want to know, help me, then we can make content for it.
Yeah, 100%. And if anyone's listening who like want to kind of like deep dive and say, if you are making calls already, tonality and cadence also matters, right? Going back to content connections calls. If we go in and call our leads and come in with a tonality of like a used car salesman, subconsciously they're going to like be turned off. But, in this, how we've been able to like push through is tonality, right? And I'll give you an undefeated phone script that we use is just their name with an upwards inflection. Tiffany, and then they lean in, huh? And oftentimes that's the pattern interrupt that you need to just push the conversation forward.
And do you do phone skills training often?
Weekly, yes, that's part of it.
That's the thing about phones. Like it is a commitment. You have to like actually train and develop and learn and keep going. I think that's why it's so hard for people to do it. And it's also just awkward. Like the Tiffany, that whole idea is just I'm not a good phone person. I hate the phone.
Yeah.
But I will answer the phone. I just don't want to call anybody. But I do think that it's, if we're looking at a multi-pronged approach, if you're doing so much on social, so much on ads, and it's not converting, you got to pick up the phone. And we say around here, pick up the damn phone all the time. Pick up the damn phone.
Yeah.
Just call the person and find out what's the issue. But I do think if you look at the website conundrum of 2025, it's all changing. I think that people are really big on Instagram, but that doesn't really convert. You need the whole strategy. So website wise, what are your like top 3 things we should be looking at for our websites?
I think website wise, I mean, a big thing for us is looking at actual Google Analytics from a strategic standpoint. There was at one point we were doing we're heavily pushing weekly weight loss. That was the second most viewed page on our website, but it wasn't above the fold, and it was buried in our services page.
Wow.
So just seeing that as CMO of the clinic, I was like, why don't we just put this above? And we just doubled sales, right? So, I mean, my philosophy with marketing and sales is like, there's a lot of low hanging fruit that we can take advantage of, like seriously, and typically get like shiny object syndrome of like what's next, without focusing on like, all right, well, this is the foundation of like growing a clinic. Like, let's make sure all the bases, all the foundation is like set, right? And then we can move forward.
Well, the other part of that too is even for Instagram, I was looking for somebody last night. On their Instagram bio, there's no like practice name, no location. Like, I don't know anything. Like, how am I supposed to guess? Land on your page through some happenstance of occurrence. I don't know where you're located. I don't know what you do. I don't know anything about you. It's a freaking bio. Like, lean into that. That's such an easy, put a link tree in there, worst case scenario. They make it really hard sometimes for us to find them. It's like, no one knows what you sell unless you say what you sell.
Exactly.
So I do think there's like a whole, like a makeover with your Instagram and LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's making a comeback. But do you do LinkedIn? Do you think it's important?
I mean, I can only speak to things that I've done. Like with our practice, we don't necessarily do LinkedIn. It's mainly social, paid ads, website content. Yeah.
Are you doing any YouTube shorts?
Surprisingly, no. We're doing YouTube long form and Instagram short form, but I have been aware of YouTube shorts, and the organic algorithm for that is amazing. So,
well, Google loves it. I mean, if you have a YouTube channel,
we're going to be testing it out.
I recommend everyone to get a YouTube channel, even if it's not the best, most groundbreaking content. Google will give you better preferences if you have YouTube, because obviously it's the same thing. Just like Meta will give you better preference if you start running ads. So, they like their own kind, which I think is really important. But okay, look at the market long term. If we're looking at today to let's say 2030, what do we need to know? What are the things that are going to be big and important besides AI, obviously?
Yeah. I think what I've experienced with managing like hundreds of clients is to pick your service that you promote initially strategically, right? There are things that don't need a lot of education in terms of, so like Botox, IVs are a few where the cost of acquisition is typically lower. Anything that needs some form of education, so like BHRT or anything along those lines, anytime you say education, that just elongates the sales cycle, and just know that the cost of acquisition is going to be a little higher. So with us, like we focus on like the Botoxes, weekly weight loss to get our cost per lead as low as possible, so we can be aggressive with our follow-up, so we can decrease our cost of acquisition. And when they actually do come in, right, obviously we focus on referrals. One of the things that is often overlooked is, hey, the cost, if we get referrals, that's pure profit, right?
Because there's no cost for acquisition of any sort.
100%.
Awesome.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing I would be like, hey, strategically pick the service that you're wanting to promote. That is the lowest cost per lead, so we can build the list. And if you do have like more expensive services or ones that need a little bit more education, like we use the reactivation campaigns and LeadAR to help support that, and it goes back to content.
Okay, it's so important. I'm glad you mentioned that. If people are trying to promote things like HRT, it's hard to promote. It's hard to talk about. It's not a quick. You need cheap. I shouldn't say cheap. You need services that are easy to understand very quickly to bring in leads. If you have to explain to someone, it's like a facelift. No one runs an ad on a facelift. Like, it's way too hard to explain, the downtime that you run a facelift on. We do plastic surgery. We do rhinoplasties or breast aug. Everyone knows what a breast aug is. Facelift's a different animal. I think in a med spa, it's very similar. To run an ad on a really intense, in-depth laser is not productive, but I can do a toxin promotion and probably get in God knows how many people in the
100%.
funnel. And then you just trade them up, right? They come in, you trade them up. I love the reactivation campaigns. I think there's a whole strategy to this that people who want to run ads and want to promote, there is a method. This is not a shotgun. There's a method to this madness.
There's a method. And if you really look at it, like from a marketing and sales perspective, if you are running services that need a little bit more education, we're kind of doing our front desk staff a little bit disservice too. Yeah. Especially if they're not trained, right? And whatnot. So the more easier the service is to sell, it is easier on them, and it's a compounding effect.
And make sure your staff knows that you're running an ad on that, because
100%.
the worst case, I've seen this, they come in for this thing. It's like, we don't even know what you're talking about. But I just got served 6 ads in the past 2 weeks on the service. How do you not know that you have it, that you're doing it?
Yeah, if we're talking about earning money on paid ads, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very common. Well, I have enjoyed our time. I know you guys are doing a huge amount of lift with your clients, with social media, with all the marketing aspects, and we need it. We need you to be educating more people. And I think you're going to do a few things. You're going to do a webinar today, I think, with our LeadAR team. And we'll have this come out. Hopefully we'll do some more stuff with you guys too, because I do think you make it very simple. It's easy to understand why it's important. And I do think the agencies overcomplicate it for various reasons that we will not disclose here on the pod. They make it really confusing. And it doesn't have to be, but you have to have a good strategic partner to help you pull it through. So any last words for our lovely audience?
I wish you all the best. If you guys want to potentially, work together, staticbosses.com, we can get in contact, and it's been a wonderful chat with you.
Well, give us your Instagram handle too.
Our Instagram handle is Aesthetic Bosses, or I have a personal. It's JOURELOR is where I post the most.
And I'll put all that in the comments too.
Yeah, also educational content as well.
Yeah, get the education content, but I'll give you guys a link for all of that. And watch what Jourdan's doing, because he's making some big waves. We see it firsthand every day. $350 a month is a huge number, so that's definitely a testament to your success. But for the rest of you guys, I'll be back probably a little bit later on today with more podcasts. But appreciate you coming on, Jourdan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest, or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.